Welcome to Midnight Menu Plus One. I am Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss.
We are part of the It's New Orleans family of shows, and let me just make an announcement first. I'd like to let you know about a live event that's going to happen on Tuesday, November 5th. If you're listening to this before then, you can join Chris True for a live recording of his sports comedy podcast, True to the Game, before the Pelicans game. That's at 6 o'clock at the Little Gem Saloon on Rampart Street near Poydras. That's Tuesday, November 5th, True to the Game at the Little Gem Saloon, and details are on our website, itsneworleans.com. We're one of the shows in that family network, in that family, that network of shows, Margot, and it's exciting to be a part of that. Tonight we're going to have as our guest, our special guest, none other than Joe Bryan. I'm very excited. I know you are too.
Yeah.
Have no idea who the plus one is. She looks very interesting. I can actually see her, but I don't know who she is. We'll give that hint. But welcome to our show. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, you are. Tell us a little bit about the Lucky Rooster.
So Lucky Rooster is it's a new restaurant we opened beginning of June. We're in the CBD, right on Barone, right off of Poydras, and it's a very kind of fun, snacky take on Asian food: Korean, Chinese, Vietnamese, Thai, and big bar program, big wine program, and involved with the same group that has Once Flying Burrito and Slice.
Right.
So we don't take ourselves too seriously.
So you got Italian, Mexican, and now Chinese.
Exactly.
And probably no Italians, Mexicans, or Chinese
exactly.
involved in.
all done by a bunch of white dudes, but
okay.
we're having a lot of fun for sure.
Italians are white, Mexicans are
Yeah.
Okay, but who came up with the name Lucky Rooster?
I think Lucky Rooster came to Chef Neil, who's one of the partners in the business. I think it came to him one Jazz Fest. I don't know what was involved in that, but he definitely came up with the idea for Lucky Rooster. They were gonna do a different kind of version of this concept at a different location called Walkstar, and that didn't work, and so it got delayed about a year, and then kind of Lucky Rooster became the idea.
So were you involved on it from the ground floor? I mean, were you at the beginning of the?
I was involved in Lucky Rooster and in this concept from almost 6-7 months before we actually opened. I was doing wine retail for a little bit and wanted to get back in the restaurant business and knew that they were doing this. So I got to get involved really in the early stages of this and kind of help guide it and make it what it is.
Yeah, now you say the wine business. I met you at Hoppers, which is great wine shop on Magazine Street.
Yeah.
But that was a break for you from being in the restaurant business before that, right?
Correct.
Where did you work before that? Tell us a little bit about that.
I was an English major, so I worked in restaurants all through college. And
college in New Orleans, right? You went to Loyola?
I went to Loyola, yeah. I finished at Loyola. And so I guess my big break in the restaurant business, I started as a waiter at Herb Saint.
Yeah, it doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah. So I was a waiter at the opening team for Herb Saint, and worked with Donald for 10 years. Went from waiter to manager, eventually became the general manager of Herb Saint right after Katrina, and then moved into kind of the corporate level. It was the director of operations for the Link Restaurant Group. And
right now, what are the other restaurants in the Link Restaurant Group? We've had a number of them on our show.
Now there's Herb Saint, there's Koshan, there's Butcher and Calcasieu, and they had a restaurant in Lafayette, and then they obviously have Pesh now, which is doing really well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I want to know how long that was when you started out as a waiter. What was the time frame, and what was that like working your way up? I mean, is that a normal process for people that are, or did you stand out and have tons of drive and?
I mean, I think I probably stood out because I had tons of drive. I mean, I waited tables for 2 years there while I was, in college, and I actually left for about 2 months. I'd finished school and had this crazy idea. I was going to work on a riverboat. I was going to make a bunch of money. I was going to pay off all my student loans, and I was going to write the Great American Screenplay.
All right, sounds like Mark Twain, working on a riverboat, writing, English major.
And I did that, and just I hated the riverboat, and so
what'd you hate about the riverboat?
It was 17-hour work days, and
what were you doing on the riverboat?
I was waiting tables. I was doing breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and so you'd work a month on and have 2 weeks off.
How far did the riverboat travel?
This was the Mississippi Queen, and we went from New Orleans all the way up to Minnesota, all the way up to Mississippi and back. And it was, it was a lot of old people on the boat. I mean, it was very much like a cruise ship. And, it was just, there were a lot of people that were just doing enough to get by. And like, I remember the first week I was working there, the guy that was in charge of the dining room, like, grabbed me and he's like, you got to slow down. Like, you cannot keep this pace up for a week of, or a month of 17-hour days. And, it wasn't about taking care of people as best you could. It was about just kind of how much you had to do. And then,
So you sleeping on the boat too?
Yeah, you lived on the boat.
Okay, so you're in steerage. You're like at the bottom.
Yeah, your
floor.
You're living
living
in a closet with one other person, and then maybe once a week, you would like hit a port late at night when there was no service, and everybody would go out and just get bombed, and like someone would
in
get
Minnesota.
in a fight. Yeah, in random ass towns that the Mississippi went through. So I did that for like 2 months and was like, okay.
Why would you ever quit that? That sounds like a dream come true.
It was awful. It was awful. So I realized that's not what I wanted to do. I knew I was welcome back at Herb Saint. And so I went back in. I was like, hey, Donald, I want to come back. And he's like, well, you can come back, but you can't come back as a waiter. And I was like, okay. He's like, you have to be a manager. So I was like, all right. So
is that because he just fired his manager like 5 minutes before? Or is
no,
that
they'd only
he fire somebody to make room for you?
No,
then?
they'd open with 2 managers, a GM, and then a managing partner who was really not a restaurant guy necessarily. And so he's like, we need another manager. We're getting busy. This is 2 years into Herb Saint, so it's really starting to take off. So they made me a manager, and I'd been working as a waiter, so I knew the stuff that I'd wish the managers would do. So I was like, Donald, I was really hoping we could buy enough salt and pepper shakers for every table so that we didn't have to like take them from the front tables after they were on dessert to move them to the back table. And he's like, go ahead and do it. He like kind of was like just empowered me to kind of like fix the stuff that I'd wanted.
That's how
to get
you knew
fixed.
he had confidence in you when you let you buy a couple
and
salt and
that's
pepper
kind of
shakers.
how he rolls. So
yeah, we heard that he's kind of hard driving, like a great guy to work for, but pretty.
Donald's intense, but like
intense, right?
he definitely like if he believes in you, he'll give you plenty of opportunity to run stuff. And so I was 24. I was made a manager. And about 3 months after I started managing, the general manager left to go run another restaurant. And so I went down to the Ditch, which is just down from Herb Saint, with Donald and the other manager. And we had a beer, and they're like, look, we're going to pay you a little bit more money, but you're going to have a lot more responsibility, but we're going to hire a general manager. But in the meantime, you're going to have a lot more responsibility. And we never ended up hiring another general manager, and so
you got promoted to that.
I was the de facto general manager. I was hiring and firing. And
so you're single at this point too, or you already married?
Yeah, no, I'm single at this point, and I'm probably the youngest person in the front of house staff, or within a few years of anybody below me, and I'm hiring and firing wait staff, and just kind of went from there. And then after Katrina was given the title and made GM and wine buyer. So it was a lot of being in the right place at the right time for sure.
Now, wine buying, did you learn that from working there, or was that something you were interested in before or as you were waiting tables?
It was definitely something I learned there. I mean, I had when I started at Herb Saint, you sell a lot of wine at Herb Saint. You sell a lot of wine at these fine dining restaurants. And so really early on, I had no fine dining experience when I started working at Herb Saint. And I was like, I sold $800 worth of wine tonight, or $1,000 worth of wine. Like, I should really learn about this. I could maybe make more money. And so initially, my interest in wine was strictly financial.
So they're letting you have a sip of the wine when you in the back?
Yeah,
no.
I mean,
so you learn about them? Or?
Yeah, they were very. I mean, it was definitely the first restaurant where we'd have wine classes,
okay.
and we'd have distributors come in and teach us about wines that they represented that we had on the list. And I definitely had, one of these like lightning bolt moments during a Burgundy tasting at the restaurant where I was just like, how can two wines from the same grape, from the same region, from vineyards, a mile apart taste so completely different? Huh. And there were a bunch of like-minded people on the initial staff, so we started getting together outside of the restaurant, doing blind tastings, and I really got into it that way. And then when I became a manager, I had access to all these wine tastings. Every Thursday we had 12 distributors coming by. I was tasting 60, 70 wines a day.
60, 70 wines a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're spitting it out mostly, huh?
Yeah, no, you were spitting, but I was I was just immersed in it, and
that could be lethal. 60 or 70.
Yeah, no, it can be
So you take a lot of notes, or are you just remembering? I mean, how do you even keep track of 60 or 70 different items you're tasting in a day?
If you taste 60 or 70 wines that say your wine reps have out on a Thursday, which was always our tasting day at Herb Saint, the reality is maybe 10 or 12 of them are serious wines, and then a lot of them are just stuff that they've got to make. They got to make their numbers on, and so. But it's important to taste those too. You can't really identify unique wines until you've had the kind of wines that are, mass produced and are a little more on the industrial side. So
you can taste the difference, I guess.
And for me, it's as important to taste something and know why I don't like it as it is to taste something and realize that it's something really unique. So I got to really learn on the job, and I was interested in it, so I started reading a lot about it. I did some travel, and it just kind of grew from there. For sure.
And you have like a 400, 500 bottle wine collection yourself, right?
Yeah, I have a walk-in cellar at the house. Now,
see, if that was even like $2 Chuck, that would be more than my net worth or whatever. So that's got to be a big proposition. You have a whole room dedicated to that.
We live in Lakeview. We got our house in April, and the guy that owned it before us, his kind of side gig, his hobby was music production. So in the garage, they had two rooms that were walled off and air conditioned. One was the music production room, and then there was a smaller room that was the sound room. So when we saw the house, it was like clear to my wife and I that it was like, all right, well, we just pop the cooling unit into the the sound room and throw your racks in there, and boom, you've got a wine cellar. So I didn't have to do anything with insulation. The whole place was insulated for sound, and so it's kind of perfect for wine storage. So
are you going to have enough to keep growing? I mean, your ambitions to have more than what you have?
I have space to definitely, put a lot more in there.
Can't you move two of your kids in the same room or something?
The cellar has grown a lot. It's tapered off since having kids. Before we had kids, we had a lot of income to dedicate towards collecting, and we're not collecting as an investment. I mean, there's stuff that we're sitting on to drink at a later date, but now that we have 3 kids, it's a little bit of stuff for the long term, and mostly it's stuff for
to enjoy and make it through having 2 kids and working and
3 kids. So the more and I've with my first kid, I bought a bunch of wine from his birth vintage that's for him that will age and be something that he can have. And
that's really cool.
Unfortunately, the second and third kid, while they'll have the same thing, there'll be a little less money put into it than the first kid had, because it's just wine's getting more and more expensive, especially
they used to call it
really
primogenitor,
the firstborn, he gets the
double portion.
Jack.
Yeah, right.
Second and third, we're gonna go to some more regions that are a little better value than Burgundy.
But isn't it about the experience and you have grown to appreciate wine? Probably it makes it very accessible to hear that you evolved with your wine knowledge, and as somebody who would like to know more about wine and don't, it's really comforting, and it's not just about investment, and it's part of the experience, and everybody could have a palate.
No,
right?
absolutely, and I mean, we're living in the best time in the history of the planet to drink wine. I mean, there's never been more great wine made in more regions. The technology and the ways to make wine better has spread because of the internet and email and all that. So there's never been a better time to be a wine drinker. Some of the classic regions like Burgundy and Bordeaux and Champagne are, the top stuff is more expensive than it's ever been because more people know about it and are after it.
It's a bigger market, yeah.
But
Chinese are buying it now, so
right,
forth, right?
Yeah. But wines from the Loire Valley and Germany and Alsace and even California is going through a whole renaissance of making stuff that's not just Chardonnay and Merlot and Cabernet. So even given the rise in prices for the classics, there are new emerging regions that produce really great wine at really great prices. So it's that's kind of more the focus as far as the everyday stuff at the house.
Well, we need to introduce your plus one. I see she's here. But before we do that, Margot, one thing. I used to go into Hopper's Wine all the time to get wine, and Joe would always help me out there. And I'd wait till I read something in a wine magazine, so I'd have some little trivia to sort of impress him, and act like I was sophisticated. And then I'd spit it out. And before I finished the sentence, he was kind of polite about it, but then he'd finish the sentence for me, like, damn it, I can't, even when I cherry pick like the stuff, he already knows it. So he knows basically everything there ever is to know about all wines everywhere, apparently, which is kind of cool.
Or maybe 10% of that.
Yeah, at least everything I read.
Right.
Introduce your plus one for us.
All right, so my plus one is Christine Janine Nielsen. She is the bar manager and runs the whole spirits program at Lucky Rooster. She's our cocktologist. That's what her business card says.
Cocktologist.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
Yep.
And
like
someone
that.
I'm learning a lot about spirits and cocktails from. She's really interested in wine, so I've been teaching her about wine, and I've been, of course, learning about spirits from her, which has been a fun
good
relationship.
exchange.
Wow.
Wonderful.
Well, yeah, good to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
No
Now,
problem.
I have a question about, so how do you collaborate? I mean, not collaborate. What's the word? How do you decide with spirits and with wine how to pair that with Asian street food, or I guess, or is that what the?
Sure.
I think you have a lot of options. You can either go wine or you can go cocktail. And so if you want to go wine, then you ask Joe about it. And if you want cocktails, then go cocktails.
But how,
and preferably both.
no, but how does your mind work when do y'all taste the food? I mean,
Oh,
I know,
yeah,
besides
absolutely.
when you were planning before, I would like to know, like when the menu was being planned, were you working with them and saying,
I was on board
flavor?
well before the restaurant opened.
Okay.
So I got
and
to taste
what does
a lot
that
of
look
things.
like when you're planning the menu and the
I look
spirits?
a lot at spices, and I also look at things that are seasonal. I always want my cocktail menu to be seasonal.
Okay.
And then build it around Asian spices, a lot of star anise, a lot of cardamom, black pepper, ginger, lemongrass, and then just kind of put it together organically. A lot of it's based on classic cocktail formulas. Once you get to know your classic cocktails, you kind of have a lot of building blocks that you know how to put together. Just sour and sweet and strong and,
So if you are tasting something, let's say the Korean fried
Korean fried chicken.
chicken that I love, how you would taste it, and it's got chili in it, right? And a
Yeah,
little.
it's probably the spiciest
heaviness.
dish on the menu.
So
for
what would you recommend as a spirit drink with that doesn't take away from the, that would accentuate each other?
I would definitely recommend something that's long and tall. So like a soda style drink. I've got a lot of homemade sodas that change seasonally.
Okay.
But something that definitely has, that isn't strong.
Okay.
To the strong in alcohol. Because that'll just bring out the
alcohol
spice in it.
and spice don't necessarily go together.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So, for example, our spiced plum fairy soda right now would be perfect. So it's a plum soda that has a lot of star anise and some allspice in it and then lemon juice, and then you can get it with alcohol or without. But it's such a long drink, like a tall soda drink, that it's not going to bring out the spice in it.
Okay, nice.
Huh.
And sorry, and where were you? Were you a mixologist? Or I'm sorry, what is it?
No.
Cocktologist.
She doesn't-
This is the first
Cocktology
cocktology position I've had. No, right before this, I was working for the Windsor Court Hotel doing their bar programs for the Polo Club Lounge and Cocktail Bar and Le Salon.
So what'd that look like? What did it look like doing that? What you did?
It was intense. Working for hotels is difficult to say the least.
So you're training the bartenders there? Is that
Yes.
what you're doing? Okay.
Yeah, doing all the cocktails, training bartenders, working shifts, organizing the way the new cocktail bar is their new cocktail bar.
How'd you get that job?
I worked and managed at Loa down the street at the International House, and a lot of the managers would come in and drink with me after their shift. And they decided that they wanted to up their cocktail program, so they offered me a brand new position doing cocktails at Windsor Court. So I took it, and yeah, that was
And
that.
did the guys or owners and stuff approach you to come in? And
Yes, yeah,
well, that's nice.
yeah.
They,
It was great. It was a great opportunity.
So you drink every day?
Of course.
Awesome.
Yes, we do.
All right.
Yeah.
No,
how you do
and so kind of the other manager, Brian Fuller, who works at Rooster, who I'd worked with back at Herb Saint, and he'd gone on to Koshan and eventually Koshan and Lafayette. He knew CJ, and so I'd already tapped him to be a manager for Rooster when we opened. And he's like, well, I know this girl, Christine, who, she just left the Windsor Court and she's working at St. Marie, but she might be interested. And I was like, I don't think we can afford her, or like we don't really have a budget for a bar manager. And we got together a couple of times, the three of us, and had drinks. And you know,
and at the same time, I was like, I don't know if I want to run another bar program. I just want to be a bartender, because it's really intense working like 3 outlets at a hotel. I was exhausted. But then I think we had drinks maybe once or twice, and it was just like, wow.
I was like, you can run it. Like I know what I like to drink, but I'm certainly not, I only have so much space in this brain for information, and it's mostly filled with wine knowledge. So I want someone that can really just be in charge of the spirits.
And I really wanted to work with someone who had a lot of wine knowledge.
Yeah.
Now,
so it's been.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but so are there authentic Asian cocktails there too? I mean, what do they drink in say China, Japan, or where some of your cuisine is influenced from? Like, what do they have certain signature drinks there, or?
I mean, the cocktail originated. It's an American invention,
Right.
So all of their cocktails are
All derivative kind of anyway, huh?
Yeah, they're derived from American cocktails. I mean, they've got great Japanese whiskey that we don't necessarily have a lot of access to, but we have some. So we have 3 or 4 Japanese whiskeys on the menu. But most of their cocktail bars, while being influenced by their seasonal fruits, are really based off of American cocktail bars. And that's true around the world.
That's very interesting. So have you always worked in bars since, like, what'd you do in college? Did you work in?
I was a barista.
You're a barista then? Okay.
Yeah, I started in coffee. I moved here about 7.5 years ago, and I did construction. Secretarial work at a music school.
Would not have guessed the
Wait,
construction.
you physically were doing construction?
You mixed
I
like
was.
mixing cement, like hauling stuff?
I did lots of stuff. I did,
Not working the
hanging
trailer.
sheetrock,
What the
finishing
hell?
floors.
Where were you when I was renovating my house? This is ridiculous.
Hiding. I don't do that anymore.
So you came to New Orleans because you wanted to be in New Orleans, and not necessarily for the construction job, probably, right?
No, I was helping out a friend, and I ended up learning a lot of stuff.
So where are you from originally?
Atlanta.
Atlanta. Okay.
Yeah.
Just like New Orleans.
I moved here right after Katrina.
All right.
And I didn't start bartending until I left New Orleans for a summer and went to Montana. And they had a bar opening at this restaurant that I was working at. And oddly enough, the couple that owned the restaurant, they met each other in New Orleans, and both had worked for the Brennans. So I started bartending there, and then I came back, did a little fine dining waiting, and then got a job in a couple dive bars here in New Orleans. I worked at Molly's at the Market. And at the Dungeon. Both both graveyard shifts.
Yeah.
And then I had a friend who came in one night, and he was like, there's this new bar, it's Bar Tonique. You should come in and, just intern. I think you'd really like it. I know you like to cook, and you're really into just food and booze in general. So I interned for free at Bar Tonique for a couple months, and then started working there and moved out of the graveyard game.
Okay, so when you were 21, 22, were you drinking cocktails? Like, have you been drinking cocktails all your life, or was that something you grew into?
No. Malt liquor.
Just really drinking.
Just really drinking. Nothing great.
You didn't start in New Orleans, though. You were drinking cocktails before New Orleans, or no?
No, when I moved here, I think I was 19 and a half, maybe 20 when I moved here, so it wasn't even of drinking age.
So, of course, you weren't drinking.
Of course, I wasn't drinking.
Mom's listening. So, so when you got here, okay, so were you like the kind of girl that grew up in Atlanta, and you were the only one in your class that had the green hair and the tattoos and dressed really cool or whatever, or did you get here
Did New Orleans hit you?
And you got here, and 2 weeks after you got here, you had the green hair and the tattoos and
Well, I had purple hair.
you had purple hair. Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
When I was in high school.
So they kicked you out of Atlanta. They wanted you to leave.
No, I willingly left.
Okay.
It's a little boring.
Did you get your ink there or here?
I've gotten all of it here.
All of it
well,
here.
not all of it. Some of it I got there.
Okay.
2 pieces there.
All right. Well, maybe that could be our break instead of the book
Yeah.
of questions. Can we do that this week, Margot, you think?
Sure.
I'd like to get
She's-
a tour of her tattoos. I think that'd be awesome.
All right.
Done.
But then
This
that
is-
gets Joe off the hook, too. Do you have any tattoos?
I
He
do
does.
have- I
He's
do
got
have
some
definitely
tattoos.
has
good
tattoos.
wine
Okay.
tattoos.
All right, great.
Yeah.
So
All right, let's
do
see
that.
everybody's tattoos. Do you have any tattoos, Margot? You never told
I
me
do.
You do? Where are they?
Well, one.
They're unmentionable places?
No, it's
Oh.
one is on my stomach, and
Oh.
it used to look like a real thing, and then now it just looks like a blue blob because it stretched out, and then it got smaller.
Oh,
and
baby and stuff.
Babies.
Yeah, and
babies.
Huh.
yes, I do. So I have a phoenix on my stomach, and I have a peacock feather on the top of my foot
All right.
that looks like a blue sperm.
Wow.
Because it's not the easiest place to have a tattoo and rubs and
Right.
Huh.
so. Yeah.
All right.
Okay, but let's hear about Janine's
Well, how many do you have?
tattoos.
Christine.
I don't know.
Christine.
Christine.
Is your middle name Janine?
Yeah, it's
Janet.
Christine Janine,
Oh.
or
Okay.
CJ for short.
You call her
Okay.
CJ.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
like CJ.
All right, so how many do you have?
I don't know. I
don't
really
know.
haven't counted recently.
We had a party recently for a guy, and we did pin the tattoo on the rock star. It's a rock star. We had 19 spots on the life-size cutout of him, and everybody in the party had to figure out where his tattoos went, and no one got it right, including him.
Wow.
So I went,
Okay.
yeah, so it's not.
Well, let's
uncommon
go
that's how many
top
you
to
have.
bottom.
Or we can go chronologically. I guess.
Show us chronologically. That sounds
So
cool too.
the first booze tattoo that I got was Ramos Gin Friends, Geneva.
Nice.
And this is a friendship tattoo that I got with my best friend Lucinda Weed. She works at Sylvain. She's also a bartender.
All right.
So we started kind of a cocktail catering business that, we both got busy, but essentially it's a friendship tattoo. So the Ramos Gin Fizz is obviously an old classic
Yeah.
New Orleans cocktail from 1888. So Ramos Gin Friends instead of Fizz, and then Geneva is Dutch gin. So it's a play on
So did she
the
get a
word
matching
forever.
one? She
Yeah,
had the same one?
Hers is on her back, and
But it says the same thing?
Geneva and always Ramos
cool.
Gin Friends. Yeah.
Sweet.
You guys still friends?
Yeah, we're roommates currently. Yeah.
Otherwise, you gotta get the tattoo altered or something.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, Joe. What is your you got to show us too.
Okay, so I guess the one that makes the most sense with what we're talking, I have Premier Cru tattooed on my chest,
Ah.
which means first growth, which is a reference to kind of the French appellation system and how they rate vineyards. So it means it's not the top vineyard designation in Burgundy, which would be Grand Cru, but there's only 32 Grand Crus and there's 160 some odd
what I'm
Premier
talking about?
Crus. So knowing Premier Crus requires more attention than knowing the Grand Crus. So yeah, I have Premier Cru there, and then I have a couple other ones, but yeah, that's
Okay.
the only booze one I have. That's the only one booze related.
All right.
What's the dad tomato?
So my
About-
father.
Oh, I thought that was a heart. It's a tomato. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a tomato.
Is that Creole tomato?
It is.
Awesome.
So my dad used to grow tomatoes in his garden when I was a kid, and he passed away when I was 9. So I have always wanted, like, I always went out to the garden and would eat tomatoes and just have tomato seeds all over my shirt just all the time. So I wanted to get something that was in the same vein as the classic mom tattoo, but a dad one with a tomato.
Sweet.
Cool.
That's what my first tattoo
That's
was
my
about too. My
Oh
father
wait, let's see his favorite. What's that one?
Oh,
Put
is
an
that
egg
one
on
you-
it.
on her elbow.
On your
the
elbow.
egg is right on the.
I mean, there's really nothing you can not put an egg on.
You know what though? That's kind of a wimpy tattoo because you can't
What?
cause any pain on your elbow. You ever
Right.
pinch the
If you-
skin on your elbow? It
That's
does
the-
not
yeah.
hurt. Watch
you
this.
hit the bone.
Have you
Look at
ever
my elbow
gotten
right now.
Have you ever
I'm just
gotten a
telling you.
tattoo on your elbow? Let me see your elbows.
Yeah.
You can't
No,
pull the
but-
skin out and tattoo
It
it. That
actually
would
is
probably
really-
be the
Naked
worst
as a
spot.
jaybird, those elbows.
It's really actually.
It's the least sensitive skin you have in your whole body, probably
But
right
they
here.
hit
Yeah,
the
but the
bone,
bone.
They can't.
Oh,
You
the
can't
bone,
pull
maybe.
the skin
Yeah.
out.
But it's also
Tattoo.
extra thick too.
No.
I'm just kidding. I'm
It's
just kidding.
actually super uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, all tattoos
Was that
are
your
uncomfortable.
worst one? What was your
Uh,
most painful?
The one on my leg took a long time. You want to see?
Yes.
Here comes the elephant.
Wow. Are you a
It is an
Republican?
elephant.
No.
What? Yeah, describe the elephant. Okay, so the elephant is in a tuxedo, or it looks
With a
like
top hat?
Tuxedo, top hat, monocle. He's drinking a martini. There's
Very
a broken.
classy
There's a
elephant.
broken bottle next to him. One of my friends and I were drinking during a Saints game, and he had an unfortunate tattoo on his butt, and he wanted to get it covered up. So we decided on getting elephants with a top hat and a monocle, drinking a martini.
Wait, what was his old tattoo that he got covered up?
It was an ex-girlfriend's name.
Ah, there
on
we
his
go.
Butt?
On his butt?
He also got, mine's black and white. He got his is colored.
Wow.
It's a pink envelope elephant with like blue shorts, and it's all colored in, and it took
That was the
way
only way to
longer.
cover up the name.
I mean, mine took almost 4 hours, and
So his took weeks. Yeah.
yeah, he had to go back.
Oh wow.
He was seriously committed to covering it up, and you're a good friend.
When it's an ex-
Well,
You
that's
get
like
the same
that's like
tattoo
Winona,
and
you know,
most
Winona
people-
Ryder, right?
Yeah,
And then Wino instead
Wino
of
forever,
whatever.
yeah.
Wino forever instead
Yeah.
of Winona. You know about that?
I don't know
Yeah.
about
Johnny
that.
Depp.
Johnny
He
Depp.
had like
Oh.
Winona forever,
yeah.
and then they broke up, and he made it Wino forever.
I didn't even know that they went out.
CJ doesn't actually like movies. This is something we've learned. I actually had to.
Only obscure
I
movies.
had to rent. What did
Roadhouse?
Roadhouse, because I was like, what kind of bartender hasn't seen Roadhouse?
Ah.
So we rented Roadhouse and watched it on one of the iPads at the restaurant like a month
Wait,
ago.
what was the Tom Cruise one? Is that Cocktail?
Cocktail?
I
Yeah.
also hadn't
I've never
seen
seen
She
that.
that.
hadn't seen that.
I
She
hadn't
saw
either.
that on her own.
I rented it from iTunes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She's just not into movies.
All right, so now we've seen about 10% of your tattoos. What else you got?
I have a pineapple jigger.
A pineapple jigger.
So jigger what?
Jigger what? Okay, got it. It
So-
says what underneath.
So there's this program during Tales. It's the Cocktail Apprentice program, and it's bartenders from all over the world who get accepted to basically make all the cocktails, batch all the cocktails for every event during Tales of the Cocktail. And it's a really great privilege to get to do it, and it was one of the first things that really got me into the cocktail community at large outside of New Orleans. And so the first year that I did it, actually the first year we did it, we didn't do tattoos. The second year, we got chartreuse tattoos.
Ah.
Chartreuse is an herbal liqueur from from France.
This is in Tales of the Cocktail, you're saying.
Yeah.
Explain to our listeners what that is in case they don't know.
Tales of the Cocktail is the biggest cocktail convention in the world.
Here in New Orleans.
It's a lot of people from the industry, both making booze, making cocktails. Some bars in New York shut down and turn into beer shop bar.
Right. Because everybody's
just
here
because
for
everyone's coming here.
Which is appropriate, right? Because this is a cocktail town, and also it was the American cocktail was invented in New Orleans, right? I mean, that's...
And I remember when it started, it was like, this thing. But, like, it takes place in July, which traditionally isn't a busy restaurant month in New Orleans. You know, the summer really slows down for everybody because it's hurricane season, the conventions don't book. And Tales of the Cocktail has become this just amazing... You know, people are coming in 4 or 5 days in advance and staying 4 or 5 days after, and it's great for the restaurants. You know, this past Tales of the Cocktail, I met more master sommeliers at Tales of the Cocktail than I'd ever met at any wine event. I mean, it's really, really well done, and it's a really great thing for the city.
I mean, to me, it makes sense too because you're dying of thirst in July. It's like very, very hot here. You're thirsty all the time. You can drink endless cocktails. Plus, you want to stay drunk because you're scared to death of the hurricane's coming.
Right.
Yeah. So you just
Now,
want to
who started that?
Ann Tinnerman.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it started as a walking tour, actually, and now it's this huge cocktail event that's just.
And this is the 5th? No, what number?
It's longer than that.
8, 9.
More than that.
So
I think their 10th year was last year. I could be wrong, but it's been going on for.
It's really gotten seriously huge. I'd say the last 5 or 6 years, where it's just like. On national proportions. I mean, it's huge.
Restaurants that you've been at, do they participate, or is it all an independent event?
Restaurants do spirited dinners, very much like during Nowfee, where you've got nights where every restaurant in New Orleans is doing a wine dinner with a different winery. Now restaurants are doing spirited dinners, so it may be with a brand, a family of spirits, or it may be a bartender that's in from out of town who's paired with a chef in New Orleans. So, it's not and there are just like, great wine festivals. There are seminar after seminar. You can go learn about vermouth for 2 hours and then take 30-minute break and go learn about, Isla scotches, and then you can take another 30-minute break and go learn about how they harvest agave to make tequila. I mean, it's educational. It's for the trade, but it's also
tends to be really educational, and they do a whole section before like the public is involved. That's all industry related. It's all about how to open your own bar, what you have to think about, like napkin wise, or you want to open a green bar, or just. It changes every year. Basically, different people submit different ideas, and then follow through and have classes.
Well, this is the most in-depth cocktail conversation I think we've had in over a year on the show. But I want to before we run out of time, I want to hear more about Lucky Rooster. I know this is one of Margot's favorite restaurants, and I got to admit, I'm going for the first time in a couple days. We have another couple.
It's a long walk.
With us. Yeah, it's a long. Exactly. Yeah, you know me. He knows me. I don't drive. No, we're going to drive to it because we're going with another couple. They'll drive us.
Cool.
And but yeah, we're going this weekend. But tell us about your signature dishes. Tell us about your chef. Tell us a little more about Lucky Rooster.
Sure. So Neil, who's the chef, he's been working in New Orleans for forever. He was the executive chef at NOLA, 2 different stints for over 7 years. He was at Delmonico, but I kind of first remember hearing about him when he was still at NOLA, and his passion's always been Asian food. He was at Mike's on the Avenue the first go around, and he loves Asian food.
He's really innovative the first time.
Yeah, absolutely, and so the menu is kind of set up in a couple of different quadrants. We have kind of your traditional Asian appetizers, so spring rolls and dumplings and ribs, stuff that you kind of expect at a lot of restaurants, but everything's done fresh. all the doughs are made in house. There's not a lot of syrups and stuff like that. I mean, all the sauces are made, so it's really, you've never really had a really good spring roll until you've had one that was like rolled that morning by the prep cook and then fried and sent right out to you. We do bao, which are the kind of steam bun. It's almost like a puffy taco with different fillings, shrimp, pork belly, Korean sticky beef. We do them with chicken and pineapple. Those are some of my favorite things on the menu. We do kind of takes on Vietnamese banh mi. So we've got, we've obviously got the bread from Dong Phuong. We know what we don't need to mess around with. And then the soup section, which are not necessarily pho. It's not really more of a clear broth. These are really enhanced broths. So I remember the first time before we'd opened, Neil brought out the vegetable stock, which I thought was the chicken stock because there was so much flavor in it. So
wow.
So we have a vegetable stock based kind of vegetarian soup. We have a chicken stock based, which we call the Lucky Rooster, kind of the signature soup that's got 3 different types of chicken and all the veggies and udon noodles. And then we have a kind of a seafood. It's kind of a take on the crab and shrimp bisque. So there's crab and shrimp and corn. And they actually simmer the crabs in that vegetable stock, and then that's how they make the stock for that soup. So, it's stuff that takes a lot of time to get. There's no soup bases. There's none of the kind of shortcuts to it, and all the noodles that go in the soups are made in house. And that on top of all that, as serious as we take all that, we have a lot of fun. We have silly names for stuff and fun specials and
all the desserts are called happy endings and
happy endings on the desserts. Yeah,
right.
yeah. So
okay. Well, now you mentioned about me being kind of far for me to walk, but it's in the CBD. And so, do you get a lot? Is that you getting mostly tourists? You getting a lot of locals? I know that neighborhood, especially Warehouse District part, is really growing in terms of like residents there.
Yeah,
there's a lot of places being converted into lofts and all that.
Right.
So, at I'm sure at lunch it's different, but at dinner
lunch is very much the kind
Right.
of business crowd. We get a lot
Right.
of people that come in a couple times at lunch. We at 11:45 the whole restaurant's full, and we'll do 2 turns. Honestly, I think we could do lunch just based on One Shell Square alone. Like they come in droves.
Because you're right off of Poydras, right?
Right. We're right off of Barone. We're on Barone, right off of Poydras,
Right.
515. And then at dinner, certainly, we're still only about 4 months in, so we're really, just getting into the kind of busy season for the CBD. But at dinner, we've got a lot of people that actually, it's a very young kind of hip crowd that people that live downtown in the lofts and the apartments. We're just in the 930 and the Civic lofts around us. We've got like
Civic,
330 some odd apartments. But we're also lucky that now the Civic Theater is doing shows. So
Unbelievable, yeah.
It's
been
gorgeous,
crazy.
gorgeous
Yeah.
space. They did a great job with that. So we'll get people coming in before a show at the Civic, or someone who's going to the Joy, or maybe someone going to the Sanger. And then, as really the big conventions start coming in town, we expect we're going to get some of that. We've been, really trying to communicate with all the concierges in the hotels and let them know what we're all about.
Right.
And then the other thing is we do a lot of takeout, so you can call in and just swing by and pick up what you want and take it home, just like you kind of expect from most Asian restaurants.
That never even occurred to me. Okay, I didn't.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem like you're that kind of place. That's really cool that you can do that too. That's awesome. Unfortunately, we're out of time, Margo. I can't believe it. I'm getting a signal from Grant. How did that happen? That's tragic.
All that talking about CJ's tattoos.
It was the tattoos that did. We
Sorry,
spent
guys.
45 minutes on the
We
tattoos.
didn't even get halfway through them.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming. This has been a delight. Lucky Rooster, everyone. Lucky Rooster, can you give us your email address? I'm sure you're on Facebook as well.
Sure,
Not your
sure.
email address, your web address.
Yeah, so website is www.luckyroosternola.com.
What happens if they go to just luckyrooster.com? that like a massage parlor or something?
No, there's some place that is not us.
So
but
it's gotta
Lucky
be
Rooster,
Lucky Rooster
NOLA,
NOLA.
and it's Facebook at Lucky Rooster NOLA.
And tell our guests your address and hours.
Yeah,
please.
so address is 515 Barone Street. We're open Monday through Saturday, lunch and dinner, all the way through. Monday through Thursday, we're open from 11 to 10 p.m., and then Friday and Saturday, we stay open until 11. Actually, this week, Wednesday through Saturday, we're going to actually stay open until midnight because we got a bunch of shows, and there's Halloween, just the bar, really. And yeah, right off of Barone and Poitras.
All right, well, thank you. It's been Joe Bryan, General Manager of Lucky Rooster, and Christine Janine, Cocktologist at Lucky Rooster. Thank you so much for being with us. It's a real delight.
Thanks for having
Thanks,
me.
y'all.
Thanks.
All right.
Our show is recorded live at Ted's Frost Top on Claiborne Avenue in Calhoun in Uptown New Orleans. Ted's is open 7 days a week, serving first-class burgers, beer, and their awesome homemade root beer in a frosty mug. Midnight Menu Plus One is produced by Grant Morris, and Chris Keogh is our technical director. And this fabulous audio quality that you hear is by PreSonus Audio Electronics. Makes all kinds of wonderful things. Visit presonus.com for more information. You can get in touch with us here at Midnight Menu Plus One by going to our website, itsneworleans.com, and from there you can follow us on Twitter, find us on Facebook, sign up for our mailing list, get all kinds of swag. And while you're at itsneworleans.com, you can listen to other episodes of Midnight Menu Plus One and our other shows, Happy Hour, Mindset, True to the Game, Vietnola, Out to Lunch, and others. And if you listen to the show on iTunes, please rate us and review us. It helps other people to find us. Midnight Menu Plus One is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsneworleans.com. So we meet here again at Ted's Frost Top. I am Ray Canada.
And I'm Margot Moss. Thanks.
You know Labor Day signals the unofficial end of summer, but not the end of your outdoor projects. Lowe's helps you do it right and helps you save with Labor Day deals throughout the store. Shop now and get 2 bags of Stay Green potty mix for $12. And keep your lawn looking neat and trim with a Craftsman 2-cycle 17-inch gas string trimmer, now $20 off at just $119. Whatever's still on your to-do list this Labor Day, do it right for less. Start with Lowe's. Offers valid through 8/28. Soil offer excludes Alaska and Hawaii. U.S. only.